Hello, and welcome to the final episode of That You May Believe, a study in the Gospel of John, picking out the themes and ideas that the community of John are writing to describe to us who Jesus is and why that matters, both for them in their day and for us in our day. And as we wrap up this final episode, we've been the last 2 days looking at the I am statements of Jesus. Who does Jesus say that he is, and how does it relate back to God and to Moses when Moses met God and God claimed to be the I am, and Jesus is claiming to be the I am and then expressing it both in words and actions that illustrate more of who Jesus is. And so today we've got two more I ams. I am the way, the truth, and the life, and I am the vine.
These are two big ones in
These
John.
are good ones.
Really big ones.
So the first one, John chapter 14.
I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me.
It's a big one, right? That verse has been used in 1,000 ways, not to benefit people, but to hurt them. Right? Which we can already simultaneously hold in unison that that's not what Jesus meant.
Yes.
Right? Like if you're hurting people, that's not the way of Jesus.
Yes.
So perhaps the way, the truth, and the life means something else.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that following in the way of Jesus, you have to read the other stories to know what the way, the truth, and the life means.
Yeah.
And it's what you talked about in another episode. It's that inclusion. It's that join us, come along, water, for the thirsty, bread for the hungry, healing for those who are sick, new life for those who everyone else gave up on.
Yeah.
Inclusion of women, inclusion of, anyone and everyone who's different.
Yeah. I think about, too, like when you think about the way of Jesus and the physical way, right? Like Jesus starts at the waters of baptism and then has this 3-year ministry in and out of people's lives. But the way is a way of love that he's willing to take all the way to death and resurrection, right? Like it's that important. So when we talk about the way, when Jesus says he's the way and we're called to be the way, he's the way of love that doesn't stop loving at any cost.
Yes.
That's a super hopeful way.
Yes.
Instead of it being like, Jesus is the stop sign, Which is how I think it's often read. Like Jesus is the thing that keeps you out.
Yeah.
Right?
Or keeps you even from living your best life. I think there's a sense of like, I don't want to go Jesus' way. I want to go my own way. The idea of individualism is really something that has only come about in recent history and frankly is only accessible to people with a lot of opportunities. People are not able to be individualistic in the context of not having resources, not having an education, that they are then dependent on their community. So I think it's really important to remember that this idea that I can create my own way and you can create your own way is sort of a false bill of goods that we've sold ourselves.
Yeah.
So that if we're to follow the way of Jesus, then that's not as creative as I'd like my life to be.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like a hot button issue for me. I think
Yeah,
because
no,
I fall into it, thinking like, well, I can figure.
And Jesus' way was a communal way.
Yes.
Right? I mean, like the first thing he does
Yeah.
is call 12 people to walk with him.
And isn't it a relief to hear somebody say, hey, follow me. I'll show you the way. Instead of having to, blaze a path on our own. I think it sounds exciting, but the reality is it's not that fulfilling, nor is it actually even possible. Even those who have been, kind of like real trailblazers that we recall in history,
They have a community that helps them be
Yes.
trailblazers.
Right.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. So for us to be the way, the truth, and the life looks like living this way of love that we see in Jesus over and over, walking into community in really intentional ways, calling a group of people together to be trailblazers in the way of love.
Crossing boundaries that others were not willing to cross.
Yeah.
Not just huddling up in our own circles, but
people
broadening.
Look just like us and act just like us and talk just like us. Yeah. It's a it's a diverse way that he's offering us, a really beautiful way. And then by John chapter 15, he says, I am the vine and my Father is the vine grower. I'm the true vine.
Yes.
And there's lots of historic Hebrew text that talk about God in terms of the vineyard, the gardener. You see them in like Isaiah 55, for example. And here, like, Jesus is the vine that connects us to the source of God,
Yes.
right? So Jesus is the vine, we're the branches, and off of us comes the fruit of God's energy,
Yeah.
which is just a really beautiful story anyway when you think about it.
Yep. Working through it all.
Yeah.
It is.
It's probably my favorite I am statement, partly
The
because I
vine.
like wine, but secondly because like I love the idea of that there's this thing connecting us to the source of energy and life in this world,
Yeah.
to the sustenance. And part of what we're doing is we're creating the best path forward for the fruit to get to people.
Yes.
And we get to hold that fruit and let people find life off of it.
Yeah.
That's a super encouraging like way of being in the world.
And I think it's an antidote to loneliness as well. You know, in a culture that is struggling immensely with being lonely and feeling again like they have to go it alone, to really embrace that you get to be a part of this vine. And that means that in your weak moments, you can rely on another part of the vine and still bear fruit and still be connected. We just moved into a house that was owned by someone who loved to garden. And our neighbor next door happens to love to garden as well. So he has told us all these stories of these plants. We have this rhubarb that was started in 1880 at a church,
Holy cow.
Catholic church, tended to by nuns, this rhubarb was, in 1880, carried over to North Dakota in the early 1900s on my neighbor's family farm. And then he brought it down to St. Louis Park 25 years ago. So it's huge. It's as big as this table we're sitting at. But we also have these vines. So when I saw these vines, I was like, I don't want the vines to grow up the side of the house because they're going to,
Mess
ruin
up.
the paint job that just
Right.
got done. So I start pulling out these vines.
He's like, wait.
Yes, he comes over and he's like, Danielle, that's a clematis, which has these gorgeous purple flowers. And I was like, I don't think it is anymore. And he's like, it'll come back. I don't think it will, Rob. I actually pulled a ton of it out already. Well, sure enough, I wish I had a photograph to show you. It has started climbing up the wall. I hadn't even noticed this. There's a nail, and it's getting stronger and bigger, and it's interconnected. And that vine is a reminder of not going it alone, of the beautiful power that that the vine is strong, and that we get to be a part of that.
Yeah. Such, if you study gardening and being a vineyard owner and read about what it means to care for the grape and the vine, like it's a process, right? There's this cutting off of things that need to be cut off, and there's this getting space where light can hit in different ways, and knowing the right time to pick and when the right time to not pick things are, and it's exactly what you're saying. There's this.
And all that is God's work, right?
Right.
All the sort of like the nuances, all we're asked to do in this passage, and all Jesus is saying is that he's the true vine and we can be connected into that.
Yeah, like our job is to stay connected.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's a fun place. And when we think about like if we're following the way of Jesus and we are the vine too, not only we're the branch but we're the vine, then part of what we're offering the world is that we have to be tapped into the source.
Yeah.
Right? Like we have to be tapped into the source of life in this world so that when people come into contact with us, what they're meeting and engaging is the divine source of life.
Yes.
It's really lovely. So it's a short one today.
Yeah.
And a great way to end.
Yes.
Like how exciting to be challenged to go and be the way and truth and life and to go and be the vine that carries the source of God's life and energy to the world. This is what John wanted.
Yeah.
What John and the community of John longed for was us to understand that the way of Jesus was important, and could change how we live, and it could change how we see and face the realities of the world around us, and awaken us to a new way of being that liberates and transforms not only us, but our neighborhoods and our world around us. So may you take the message of John, and may you believe. That's his long goal, right? In John 20, where we started, his desire of writing this entire text, the community's desire, was that we might believe. And so may you believe that there's a God who loves you beyond measure and wants you to tap into that life-giving energy at all costs.
To give to the world. May
give
one
to
of
the
these
world.
beautiful images capture your imagination in such a way that you begin to have an idea of how to dream dreams about how you can bring the light or the bread or, to the world. It's really
good.
beautiful.
Yeah. So go in peace, and we'll see you when we jump into Hosea sometime coming up.
Yeah. All right.